That's why we're fighting so hard to prevent that situation and to build the conditions for a deal. Let me finish with two remarks. One about you know, the fact that we all need to contribute to a deal. When we negotiate with our British counterparts, but also the civil society, people who are committed to good cooperation, they need to have their views be known by those who are taking decisions. And my very last remark is to say that myself, my colleagues, and I'm followed in this and accompanied in this call by 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿𝗲. Cyril is our science, research, innovation counselor. He's listening to you. He'll be, I'm sure, be able to say a few words towards the end of this discussion. But just to know that through him or through me, please feel free to be in touch with us. We are a new embassy, just setting up COVID problems, as you can imagine. But my 50+ team is absolutely committed, as I am, to the quality and the sustainability and the future of our relationship with the United Kingdom, and in this particular case, the relationship with Portugal. Let me finish with the word in Portuguese. Muito boa tarde e grande abraço a todos os compatriotas portugueses que se unem a nós hoje nesta conversa. Apesar de ser representante da União Europeia, sou também português e como tal homem, portanto todos os contactos com a comunidade portuguesa será também uma prioridade para mim. Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you all. Good luck to the panel, and I'll be following it partly, but anyway, Cyril will be with all of you, so please stay in touch, and most of all, stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your kind words and for attending the event, and welcome Cyril as well. We hope to hear from you in a little bit when we are discussing this topic a bit further. I think I agree with the Ambassador. I think 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 was also always very vocal about getting a deal, about managing to keep the cooperation between the two countries. We signed a protocol last year with the Ministry for Science, Technology and Higher Education in Portugal, just with that objective of being able to keep the cooperation. So I'm very happy to hear words, and we are still hoping for a deal and for the best. And obviously, again, in the name of the Executive Committee, thank you all for participating and for attending this event. And one of the aims of this event was to share with our community the results of 2 surveys we conducted on the expectations and motivations of Portuguese students and researchers when they moved to the UK. The first survey was done in 2017, and then we repeated the survey in late 2019. So we wanted to compare both of them and see if the feelings had changed in the meantime with the Brexit negotiations. And Mariana Pereira from the 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 Executive Committee will be presenting these results now. So Mariana, up to you.
Yep, hello everyone. I'm also managing the platform, so please bear with me a little bit while I will share my screen and the presentation. Could I please see some nods whether you are seeing my screen? Yes, and can you hear me well? Perfect, okay. So good afternoon everyone once again. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Mariana. I am part of the Executive Committee of 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿. I'm a PhD candidate at the Cambridge Heritage Research Center, University of Cambridge. So in order to set the background for the debate we have planned for today, I will present the main findings from the survey that Marcia already mentioned. It's a survey of expectations and motivations carried out by 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿. Now, after a referendum determined the United Kingdom would withdraw its membership from the European Union in 2016, 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝘁, alongside other diaspora associations, realized there were several questions and uncertainties regarding Brexit and what members of 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝘁 thought of the situation. Now, for this reason, 𝗕𝗂𝘁𝗂𝘁 conducted a survey in 2017 which was then repeated in 2019 to understand the expectations and motivations of its members in envisioning their personal and professional futures. 214 members answered 14 questions on personal, academic, and professional aspects. The results provide quite an interesting insight into migratory and diasporic fluxes of Portuguese students and researchers to and from the United Kingdom, but also provide a picture of how Brexit is being perceived. Overall, most of our respondents arrived in the UK as students, 43% and 31% as PhD students in 2017 and 2019, followed by researchers with a doctoral degree and master's degree students. The three most represented fields of research are life and health sciences, almost 40% in both years, then around 30% from engineering and exact sciences, and from social sciences and humanities, where there was an increase from 8% in 2017 to 18% in 2019. It should be emphasized that in 2017, among students and researchers, 51% were funded by an institution in the United Kingdom, followed by funding from Portugal. There was a change in 2019 with a decrease from students funded by the United Kingdom and a slight increase of those funded by Portugal. And finally, for both years, we see a small number of respondents being funded by the European Union. Regarding migration flows, most respondents came directly from Portugal when moving to the UK. We are looking at figures of 89% in 2017 and 74% in 2019. And for both years, almost 90% of respondents indicated they did not leave the UK since they have arrived. Now, the main reasons for moving to the UK were the same in both surveys, namely the availability of employment and research opportunities, better conditions for studying, and higher probability of career progression. It should be noted that the least important reasons driving people to move to the UK were personal reasons and the desire to change careers. Over 90% of participants in both surveys secured a position or a job before they arrived in the UK. The expectations people had of the UK were met or even surpassed for most respondents. In 2017, though, 58% of respondents indicated they had not progressed in their careers since they arrived in the UK. Quite differently, in 2019, 3 out of 4 respondents did progress in their careers. When respondents were asked if they were planning to leave the UK, knowing that Brexit would take place, 52% replied in 2017 they were thinking of moving out of the UK in the near future, almost half of whom claims it is related to Brexit. Most of the respondents planning to leave were either students or were at the time working under a fixed term contract. In 2019, we have a drastic change. Only 29% of respondents plan to leave the UK in the near future. Out of these 29%, more than half claims it is related to Brexit. Interestingly, of those who plan to leave, most are employed with a permanent contract. So it seems that professional insecurity is not one of the main reasons underlying the desire to leave. In 2017, only 19 respondents, that is less than half of those planning to leave, indicated Portugal as their place of choice. But this number again changed in 2019 when 82% of respondents who were planning to leave expressed the desire to go to Portugal. Now, despite respondents claiming their expectations of the UK were met, almost 2 out of 3 respondents are planning or thinking of moving back to Portugal at some point. There is a slight tendency for those who wish to return to be either students or professionals with a fixed term contract. The main reasons for wanting to move back to Portugal were the same in both 2017 and 2019 surveys: personal reasons, followed by quality of life and getting a job offer. It is important to highlight that the decision to return to Portugal does not appear to be based on how long people have been in the UK. Finally, let us look at the reasons ranked least important when 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁 members consider moving out of the UK: integration challenges in the UK, lack of professional achievement, and willingness to change careers. These reasons were the same in 2019, just the latter reason changed into the end of a work contract in the UK. So these are the least important reasons to move out of the UK. From the surveys, and considering that our results derive from a small proportion of our membership, we believe these are the main points. Our members moved to the UK mostly for educational and professional reasons. People secured their position or job before moving to the UK. Then they have been given better research and funding opportunities, have been able to progress in their careers, and in this sense, their expectations of the UK are being met. What would make people return to Portugal are mostly personal reasons. Yet we wonder, if the conditions for research opportunities or career progression change, particularly because of Brexit, then how far will the United Kingdom continue to be an attractive country? In the light of a possible no-deal Brexit, what keeps our members hopeful about the UK? Might it be because people are settled in the UK and have progressed in their careers and for this reason will not leave? Is it because in Portugal they do not have the same opportunities they have here? Or is it because our community has yet to realize what the consequences of a no-deal Brexit actually are? Finally, we would just like to share what 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 has been doing. We partnered with Welcome and other diaspora associations such as 𝗳𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗍, done in the United Kingdom, and the 𝗕𝗁𝗰𝗶𝗲𝗿 Foundation, and we signed the petition Keep the EU and UK Collaborating in Science, #DealForScience. And 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁, alongside with 𝗳𝗁𝗁𝗁, 𝗊𝗍𝗁𝗁, and 𝗕𝗁𝗰𝗶𝗲𝗿 Foundation, published an opinion piece in Nature titled Danger to Science of No Deal Brexit. So thank you so much for your attention. I am now handing the floor back to Marcia.
Thank you very much, Mariana. I think some of these results are very interesting, and I hope we can discuss some of them with our panelists this afternoon. And again, before I introduce them, I would like to thank them all for agreeing to participate in this event. I am aware this is a Saturday afternoon, so thank you very much to taking the time to speak to us. And so today for our discussion panel, we have His Excellency 𝗀𝗰𝘁cie, the British Ambassador to Portugal. We have 𝗳𝗂𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁, Director and Principal Investigator at Instituto Gulbenkian Ciência, Julie Maxton, Executive Director of the Royal Society, Carlos Moedas, Trustee of Fundação Carlos Gulbenkian and former European Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation. And we are still waiting for Vivian Stern, Director of Universities UK International. Hopefully she will be able to join us soon at some point during the discussion. So welcome all. And as a start, I would like to invite you all to briefly describe what has been your role and the role of the institutions you are representing here today for Brexit. So perhaps we start with Mr. Ambassador 𝗬𝗁𝘁𝗯𝗲𝗿.
Thank you very much. So I hope you can all hear me. Perhaps, Marcia, could you just give me a little signal to say that you can hear me?
Yes,
Good. Excellent.
we can hear you. Perfect.
Well, as I say, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists. Thank you very much to 𝗳𝗁𝘁𝗁𝗲 for inviting me to take part in this event. And of course, it was a great pleasure to hear from my colleague, my esteemed colleague, Ambassador 𝗕𝗿𝗏𝗿𝗍, a little earlier. I think this is the first formal contact I've actually had with 𝗳𝗁𝘁𝗁𝗏, although I've obviously met many of your members and alumni. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been the British ambassador in Portugal now for the last 2 years. For those of you who do know me, or have perhaps followed some of the things that I get up to here in Portugal, you will, I think, recognize that one of my professional passions is promoting science research and higher education links between the UK and Portugal. And before COVID-19 came along, I spent a lot of my time out on the road, visiting Portuguese universities and higher education institutes up and down the country here, trying to build up and foster connections with the UK, because I'm a big believer in the value of international collaborative science and research. And I really do see this as a central pillar of the relationship between our two countries now, and I very much hope into the future. And we've done some really great things together over the last couple of years. Last year, the UK was the guest country at Portugal's annual science get-together, 𝗕𝗁𝘁𝗯𝗲𝗿, which I think really strengthened bilateral partnerships in science between our two countries. Last year, also, our two space agencies signed an exciting bilateral agreement to promote civil space cooperation. That seems to me to be an important new area of collaboration. There was another important agreement established between the FCT and Imperial College, establishing PhD programs in many important and exciting areas of scientific collaboration. And the UK also became a full member of the Portuguese-led AIR Centre, the Atlantic International Research Centre, which we believe will be another important route for both bilateral but also multilateral collaboration that should deliver lots of benefits in terms of business, entrepreneurs, innovation in countries around the Atlantic, including some of the lower income countries. So that's just a few examples of why I think that the UK-Portugal science and innovation relationship is strong and in good shape. We're Portugal's third partner for cross-border collaborative science projects. And here's an interesting statistic. 1 in every 5 Portuguese scientists outside Portugal is based in the UK. All of that brings me back, I think, to my point that I really, excuse me, I really do believe that British science and British universities are one of our strongest selling points as a country, one of our biggest assets, if you'll forgive that phrase, in Portugal. But, of course there's a but. My 2 years in Portugal have also coincided with a lot of Brexit. Now, I'm not a politician. It's not my job to offer a political view one way or the other. And in terms of the negotiations, we've already heard from Ambassador 𝗕𝗿𝗏𝗍𝗍𝗿, who is much closer to the detail of all of that than I am. But, our country has left the European Union, and there's another big deadline looming, which is the end of the transition period on the 31st of December. For the last 2 years, I've been part of a group of UK ambassadors in Europe who've worked hard to try to secure the best possible outcome for the future of higher education and in particular science collaboration between the UK and the European Union. But, I'm not going to try and pretend to you that Brexit is good news on all fronts. Obviously the logic of leaving the European Union and in particular ending the free movement rules means inevitably that things that were sort of automatic and very easy in the past when we were in the European Union are going to be less automatic and possibly a little less easy in the future. In particular, I think it was always inevitable, sadly, that EU students, researchers and academics wanting to come and study and work in the UK would in the future, be subject to the same rules as people coming from everywhere else in the world. And of course, that is quite a big change for the community of EU students in the UK, or at least those who will come in the future. And I guess it must undoubtedly feel to many of our friends in Portugal and other EU countries as if something is being taken away. Having said that, though, the UK's departure from the European Union does not mean that we as a country are any less committed to international collaboration. In fact, I believe that the opposite is true. And I certainly don't think, for example, that there's any kind of ideological or political objection from this UK government to continuing to collaborate really closely with our European neighbours. Now, there are some quite big questions to which we don't yet know the answers. And again, this goes back to the negotiations, which Ambassador 𝗕𝗿𝗲𝗿 was telling us about earlier. Questions like whether and on what terms the UK will continue to participate in or be associated with EU programs like Erasmus+, Horizon Europe. Those questions are part of the bigger set of issues that are still being discussed between London and Brussels. I think we're all probably relieved that the talks have restarted this week after a bit of a hiatus last week, but there are undoubtedly difficult issues to resolve. And I think the ambassador was absolutely right to say that we can't guarantee that that deal is going to be reached. But my view, it's a personal view, but I think that areas like these EU programs, and I mentioned too, Erasmus+ and Horizon Europe, these are not intrinsically major subjects of disagreement between London and Brussels. And I think that, provided the UK is able to continue to participate in a way which serves the UK's interest, but is also fair in terms of our financial contribution, I personally don't see any reason why a deal shouldn't be reached in these areas. But that is, as I say, a personal view. If we can't get that agreement, I'm also pretty confident, based on what British ministers have said, that the UK government will look to replace those programmes as far as possible with other schemes designed to allow this sort of interchange and collaboration between the UK and Europe to continue into the future. Now, sorry, I've probably spoken for too long. One more point. I'd just like, I think, to end these remarks by saying that, of course, I've been talking about the institutional side of things because I'm an institutional figure. But that's, for me, is really only part of the story. And the part that really matters is all of you, the Portuguese scholars, researchers, scientists, and academics, who've chosen the UK and enriched our higher education ecosystem. And I'm very, very grateful to you all for making that choice. I hope and believe that it was the right choice for you all individually. But I also hope and believe that both our countries can continue to benefit immeasurably from the exchange of people and ideas that you all represent. Now, very interesting to see the results of the study, and I felt that some of the questions that you asked at the very end are still questions that are open, and certainly things that we need to reflect on. But, for as long as I'm allowed to remain here in Lisbon, I will do everything I can, and my embassy will do everything it can to continue to facilitate and promote this very rich and fertile exchange in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think indeed we are still hoping for the best. And even if it wouldn't happen, I deeply believe that it would take maybe a while to get a new relationship or to adapt to new rules. But I mean, it's a very strong relationship either between the UK and Portugal or between the UK and the European Union. And obviously relationships like that cannot just end from one moment to the other. So even if January 1st comes and there's no deal, I'm sure we'll find an alternative arrangement to continue to collaborate. So maybe I'll ask now maybe to Monica to please introduce herself and her role and how Instituto 𝗀𝗰𝘁cie is preparing for the Brexit.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah? It's really a pleasure to be here today, and I would like to start by congratulating 𝗲𝗂𝗁𝗲 for all their activities, and it's really an honor to be part of their consultative council. And so today, I'm Monica 𝗀𝗰𝘁cie, and I'm director of the Instituto 𝗀𝗰𝘁cie, and I've been a group leader at the IGC since 2006, and before then I was 9 years in the UK. So I was a PhD student and also a postdoc in the UK, first at UCL and then at University of Cambridge. And so I think here, I mean, when we think about science, science is really a global activity, knowledge is global and talent is global. So I think there's this collaboration between Europe and the UK is completely fundamental for science in Europe, but also science as a global endeavor. And this is something that we should really push forward. 𝗀𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗍 itself, so the 𝗀𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗍 Institute has had many students, PhD students and postdocs leaving the IGC and going to the UK, many like me in the past. And we have a huge network of alumni that have been or are still in the UK. And so that for us is really an important thing. So the UK has been always a very important place where people have gone, as the ambassador has said. And this is because science in the UK is fantastic. It's one of the best places in the world to do science. And also because in general, it's a great place to live. So I think people really like to move to the UK. And I hope that this continues to be an easy thing to do because it just makes sense to do it that way. In terms of the institutes that we are nowadays, I mean, we have also several people from the UK at the IGC. For example, we have 2 group leaders from the UK. We've had programs, for example, with Oxford University to receive students, undergrad students doing summer courses at the IGC or undergraduate courses at the IGC. So the collaboration, you know, goes from ITN networks in the European Union, at many different levels. The collaboration is really an important collaboration with the UK. So we would be very sad if this would be interrupted for, you know, our science and also for science in general. What are we doing? So we are actually part of an organization to promote excellence in science in Europe, which has 14 different countries and 14 institutes, 1 in each country. In the UK is actually the 𝗲𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗍𝗿 Institute in Cambridge. And what we have done together is actually try to voice that it's really important that whatever happens with Brexit, that science should not suffer and then collaboration at the scientific level should continue. This has been through a paper in February this year, then also supporting the 𝗀𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗍𝗿 paper. And more recently, we are also just changing also our opinion, but we'll be submitting another paper recently probably next week. And our opinions are really that, you know, this collaboration needs to continue. So UK participation at the level of the Horizon Europe and any science and innovation program is very important, such as Erasmus, as the ambassador was saying. The mobility of researchers at all levels of their career is really important. Mobility is one of the most important things in science, and we should really push for that. And there should be no boundaries in terms of the science, the data that you know, different countries produce, the inventions that we do. So we should really defend that there should be no boundaries within Europe, but also with the UK, because that's what strengthens us, what we can do. For example, in terms of clinical research and rare diseases, I mean, there are so many different things that we gain so much from doing things together. So what we've been doing is mostly in terms of science policy and through EU Life. So I think for the moment, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, I think it's great to see Portugal on the forefront of some science policy. So that's great. Perhaps we now move on to Julie.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. So it's a great pleasure to be here. It's a bit of a gloomy Saturday in London. It would be much better to be in Portugal, but however, I am stuck here. So I'd just like to begin by saying that the Royal Society is the National Academy of Science in the UK. It was founded in 1660, and it has a very special relationship with Portugal, because our first patron was King Charles II, and he married a Portuguese queen, 𝗀𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗍𝗿 of Braganza. So we have a very close, we regard it as a personal relationship with Portugal, and we're very proud of the 25 Portuguese fellows who over the years have been part of our fellowship, and some today. So what have we been doing? Well, the first thing to say for the Royal Society is that the Royal Society's position is we want the closest possible association with Horizon Europe. As has already been said by Monica and others, science is international. It's a global activity, and we want as few barriers to scientific collaboration as possible. So that is our first position. The second thing to say is but as Chris, if I may call you that, Chris, has said, the UK has left the EU. So whilst on the one hand, we want the closest possible association and we want to try to get to the deal, as was talked about earlier, on the other hand, we have to look at a plan B, that if the deal is not there or if association is not possible, what can we do to attract scientists to the UK? So we've been working with colleagues in government and in 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗲. I think most people probably on the call know about the 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗲, the research and innovation part of government, to establish a discovery fund, which will offer large long-term grants at the highest level of the quality of the ERC grants, which the UK has been so successful in attaining when it was in the EU, and also to set up a Marie Curie equivalent for up to 3 years to attract people into the UK. So there's no question that we want to keep attracting people to the UK. Talent will find other talent and work together, whatever the political constraints. What we must do is make sure that we work with the government on the global talent visa, which is something we've been working on, that we try to persuade the policymakers to lower the costs of visas, which are high compared to many other countries, and we're working on that, and to remove other barriers to entry. And I have to say that the government, I think, understands these issues. They made a commitment, well, an original commitment of 22 billion to science over 4 or 5 years, but that may be changed, of course, because of the COVID pandemic. But nevertheless, it's very pleasing to see that the government is committed, as we are, to establishing networks, to re-establishing networks, to bringing people to the UK, and for outward mobility as well, so that people can work perhaps for 2 years here and 1 year somewhere else on a different fellowship. So we're really committed to all of that. The Royal Society itself has a lot of money to give out in grants, and we accept applications from all over the world. So at any one time, we have thousands of people on grants and over 100 million every year to dispense. So don't forget the Royal Society if you're thinking of a grant, and you know, welcome the Royal Society at 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗲. The plurality of funding sources is one of the parts of the ecosystem that makes Britain great in this area of science research. And so I'll just finish by saying, I always take confidence from looking at history. So if you look at what's happened to the map of Europe from 1660, when we were founded, to the present day, it's been drawn and redrawn through wars, political changes, etc. I think science can overcome this particular situation, because there have been worse, and through them all, scientists have found each other and collaboration has happened. And it's our job to try and keep that going and to try and make it easy for you as researchers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. I fully agree. In the particular case of Portugal, as Ambassador 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 mentioned, it is indeed UK is a very, very important partner, and hence why we are so keen on keeping the collaboration going. I think we can hear now a little bit from 𝗳𝗂𝗁𝗁𝗍.
Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here with you this afternoon, and I want to basically say hi to everybody. It's been really good to listen to all my friends. I think that 𝗳𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗿 is one of the best public servants I've met in my life, a great ambassador of the European Union. And of course, 𝗀𝗰𝘁cie𝗯𝗲𝗿, that is also an amazing ambassador. I mean, both of them have something in common, is that they speak actually on a different language. They don't speak as ambassadors, and that's very good. They don't speak on a round language. They have direct answers to the questions. And so I wanted to say hi to them. of course, to Monica, one of our best researchers and the leader of the Gulbenkian Foundation Science Institute, and to Julie too, that I was so happy in my tenure as a commissioner to visit the Royal Society, and it was one of the highlights of my life as a commissioner. To your question and to what I've done as a commissioner. So for me, this is very to my heart, because from 2014, I felt that something was coming, that we were getting to a point where these would happen. And I felt that the connection that we had with the people on the street, that people didn't know what we were doing in terms of science. And so one of my fights, and I think that it's about Brexit, but it's also about other things that are happening today in Europe, was about that connection with people. And so one of the things was to design this amazing program, Horizon Europe, that now is on the table, unfortunately at a lower budget than my proposal at the time, that was 100 billion. And the design of the program that we were able to basically get agreed before the end of the Juncker Commission was about the open innovation, the open science, and the openness to the world. And I think that that's exactly what Europe should be, and that's what we should fight for, this openness of Europe. And if we do that, we can basically, in such a difficult situation, to become a pool of attraction, a pool of getting the best of the best in the world to do science in Europe. And so when I started this plan, I never thought that one day the UK would leave. I mean, it was like totally, for me, something that was not even in the impossible, was not even really a nightmare. I mean, I could not believe that the UK was leaving this program. And I hope that the UK will stay in this program. Whatever happens to the relationship of the EU and the UK, I think that this piece, which is the relationship of science, innovation in between the two sides, the EU and the UK, is essential for the future of all of us, the European future, which either you're part of the European Union or not, but the UK is Europe. And so I think that the way it was designed was actually to get the possibility of the UK to be part of it, even if something would go wrong, and it went wrong. And so we designed it in a way that the UK could always be part of it, so you can patch the UK to the program, and then the UK would pay as you go. So if the UK would participate and put, let's say, in a project 5 scientists, the UK would pay those 5 scientists plus an administrative cost, which is normal because there's an administration to running the program, and the UK had to pay for that administrative cost. But it was totally transparent. And so what I'm really waiting for is that if the agreement in between the EU and the UK, the major umbrella agreement, is done, then we can have an agreement in between the EU and the UK at this science level, at the program, at the Horizon Europe, because the whole thing is prepared for it. So it's not that you have to change any rules or that you have to create any bureaucracy. The design of Horizon Europe was done in a way that the UK can come in. But the point that I wanted to make on this really first part of the discussion is that this is not about the money. And so for you that are the scientists, you have to be very clear about it, because I'm very worried that I see a narrative in the UK from some people in the UK, of course, not the people that are here with us today, that the UK could invest the same amount of money without the European program and everything would be okay. So let's imagine that the UK would put the amount of money that is putting on Horizon Europe and just do their program. I think that would be wrong for the UK, will be wrong for Europe, and will be wrong for you, because Horizon Europe is not about the money, was about, and has been and will be always, about this amazing power of collaboration in Europe. And if you don't say that very loud, if you don't shout that very loud to hold the politicians, then people think, why would you be part of the European program? You can do it in the UK alone. And so I think that in these last mile of these negotiations, it's so important that you speak up, that you write about it, and that you tell that the reason that Horizon Europe has been so successful is not about the money, is about the collaboration. Then I wanted to basically cherish everyone that I've worked in the UK at a scientific and also political level, people like 𝗕𝗰𝘁𝗲𝗿 or Paul Nurse, and so everybody that has been fighting very hard for these relationships to be a reality in the future. The problem today is that because we are creating these negative expectations, this uncertainty, and I've seen some comments already in your chat, one of your colleagues was putting really here on the comments that people are not coming anymore. And people are feeling that what's going to be afterwards. And so institutionally, I think was Rui and Mariana that were making that comment, that is true. So we have to keep fighting to say to people that whatever happens, there will be a relationship of science, of innovation in between the EU and the UK. And that is really part of your job, because politicians will not talk about it. Politicians don't talk a lot about science. That's terrible, but that's the reality. So if you don't fight for it, nobody will fight for you. And finally, just on this first round, let me tell you how jealous I am of what you're doing. Because when I first left Portugal, I was basically 21, 22 years old. I went to France, and then I went to the United States, and there was very few people that were organized like you are in an association where you guys can discuss, can think about the future. So you have a structure. And at the time, that didn't exist. Actually, probably at the time there was PAPS in the US that I was part of, that was really at the beginning. And this is so important for you, especially in these terrible times where you're thinking about the uncertainty of the future, where you're thinking what are you going to do in the future, that you can get together and do the kind of work that you're doing, the very good presentation, the questionnaire that you've done, because that's also a way of really fighting. And today, the scientists outside of Portugal that are Portuguese are so much more organized than they were in my time, where we were very few people outside, that I think the work that you do should be praised. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that you should keep doing it in the very near future. And you should be the ones that will basically tell the people in Portugal, the politicians in Portugal, the role that you have, your relationship in between the two countries, and what can you do as scientists to get it to the next level. Look, on a more negative note, I think that it was very sad to see that the European Union was not able to keep the 100 billion proposal that was on the table at the time. I think it's very sad that the proposal was lowered down to basically 90 billion, 90. Of course, if the UK comes in and the UK is part of it, we could really have an amazing institution of science, an amazing program called Horizon Europe. And if you put the UK with, let's say, 20 billion, which is basically totally possible, and you will have more than 100 billion from the UK and the EU to be the center, the European Center of Science, which we need for the future very much if we want to succeed. And if we want actually to get out of this crisis, because there's no other way out of the crisis apart from science. So we have to invest more in science. So that would be just to start, but looking forward to the questions then.
Thank you. And thank you. Indeed, 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗿 has been shouting as loudly as we can, either individually or with other diasporas. And Mariana mentioned a few in her presentation. to different stakeholders, the Royal Society, BEIS, Welcome, and now more recently with the EU delegation with Ambassador 𝗕𝗂𝗿𝗂𝗿 and Cyril. So we are trying our best. It was great to hear from you. I think you already raised some very interesting points. I think when we talk with our members, and to be honest with other diasporas, there are always topics that come up very frequently. I mean, things like mobility is extremely important. Funding, you know, if the UK cannot access European funding, would there be a problem? And definitely career progression. So I think these are the three main topics. And maybe to kickstart the discussion a little bit more in depth, maybe I would just ask Julie, I think you briefly mentioned what the Royal Society has been doing, but I think, could you give us like an overview of overall and the discussions you had, for example, with 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗍 and other bodies, what has actually been achieved? So what has been agreed in terms of science and research during this negotiation process, and which questions remain open? And this can include like citizens' rights, in this case, research rights, and students' rights, funding. Could you give like a brief overview of that? And then maybe we can go for some more in-depth questions. You have to unmute, Julie. Yeah, thank you.
Just following the rules. So, of course, well, as I mentioned before, our position is that we'd like the closest possible association with Horizon Europe. Our government maintains that they would like that as well. But, of course, they need to prepare in case that doesn't happen. And so, and we have always, we accept that, but our position is that the more you look at Plan B, the more Plan B might become the reality. So we have been very careful to make sure that everybody knows that we want the closest possible association. And just to pick up on the point that Carlos made, that the networks, the collaboration of Horizon Europe is what makes it so valuable. And there's a real danger that association comes down to value for money in terms of how much are you putting in and how much are you getting out, and which discounts the value of the networks and the strength of Europe together in science. And so we're working very hard to make sure that the government in all its committees, etc., understands that. And in fact, this week, one of my colleagues was speaking to the House of Lords Science and Technology Committee and emphasizing the value of the networks. So that's the first point. The second point is, as I mentioned before, should the worst happen and we don't associate or don't associate immediately, then the government is keen to have a fund, which they call a discovery fund. But as Carlos, I completely agree with Carlos, a UK discovery fund is not going to replace ERC funding. When you have 28 countries coming together and you get the best of them and the best of peer review out of 28 countries, one country alone trying to do the same thing, it's going to have to work very, very hard to get international buy-in, to have international scientists on the scientific board, for international people to do peer review. It's going to have to work really hard. So we're working with 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗍 and we're pointing all of this out, but we keep maintaining that association is really where we want to be. So the Discovery Fund is long-term ERC replacement, and then there's a Marie Curie, and the BEIS, the government department responsible, is very well aware about needing a replacement for the up to 3-year fellowships. They're also really aware of the need, as I mentioned before, to keep mobility, make mobility easy. So they're looking at, well, they've got an office for talent. There's a global talent visa. They're looking at certain prizes. If you've won certain prizes, then you can get a fast track through to the visa. And as I mentioned before, we're making the case to lower the costs because we want to remove as many barriers as possible so that talent can flow and be as mobile as possible. So on all of those fronts, getting people to move for where their talent can take them, getting the funding to enable them to do it, and having an ecosystem with a plurality of funding sources, that's what we're working on, because all of our, and we've been saying the same thing since before the Brexit vote. We put out 3 papers. One was on people, one was on funding, and one was on regulation. We've made the points again and again that what scientists will follow the money, and they will follow where good scientists in their field are. And if we can make that marriage of their money and the good scientists together, then we will all be stronger. And this is about Europe being strong. It's not just about Britain being strong or anybody else. I think keeping, like Carlos said, he went to France and then he went to America. People move all over the place. Science is so international. It's stunning, really. So we make the case over and over. And just to finish with a point on research culture, we did a report last year on research culture. We're very keen to ensure that research culture is high, that integrity in the scientific endeavor is high, that people are treated well, that there is a diversity that diversity in the widest sense is represented in science. And when behavior is poor, that it is called out and it is dealt with. And, you know, we know that sometimes that hasn't happened in the past, but we're very committed to working with others to ensure that that happens in the future.
Thank you very much. I think, as Carlos mentioned, and the fact that scientists really do move a lot, but for example, as we've seen in our surveys, one of the main attractions in the UK is for sure more job opportunities, more funding, but another thing is career progression. So do you think there will still be opportunities for researchers and even students to progress in their career in the British institutions? And this question can be either for Julie or for the ambassador.
I've probably spoken enough. Chris, I'll give it to you.
Ambassador, if you want to comment on this.
Okay, well, just before I attempt to answer that question, perhaps I could just say how much I enjoyed listening to all my fellow panelists, all in different ways, setting out their own sort of passionate vision for, you know, UK, Portugal, and indeed UK, European science collaboration in the future. I share all those sentiments so much. It was such a pleasure to hear those arguments being made by you all. But yes, the question of career progression, I think that is probably more a question for, you know, colleagues representing UK universities, or Julie will undoubtedly have thoughts on that. But I think from the government side, the answer is yes, those opportunities, you know, we're very determined that those opportunities should continue to be there. The government, I think, really does recognise, as I think, and I was very pleased to hear Julie acknowledge this as well, you know, the importance of a really successful UK research and innovation sector to our society and our economy, and to achieve that, the importance of ensuring that the UK remains an attractive destination for scientists, researchers and entrepreneurs from overseas in the UK. Julie, you referred to the global talent visa. You probably know more about it than I do, but my understanding is that is going to provide, you know, an important route, sort of fast track route for highly skilled individuals and teams to come into the UK, precisely to sort of achieve that objective. And it will enable UK-based projects to hire the talent they need to ensure that the UK does remain at the cutting edge of international science and research. So that seems to me to be one important way in which this government is you know, devising its response to this challenge. I think I'll pause there because I suspect that you've got more to say on this subject, but let me hand back to you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. If I may just make one or two remarks. there is no point, in my view, in putting a lot of effort into getting people to move country and to attracting them to the UK if you don't provide some career progression. I mean, it's really important. A lot of effort is going to go into attracting people. I mean, in my previous position at Oxford, I had a lot of responsibility for bringing professors to the university. And it wasn't just the job, it was other things. It was the partner happy to come? Were the children happy to come? Were the housing, you know, the pensions, all sorts of things that you've got to think about. And I think these things are being thought about in the discussions around the Discovery Fund. I think the universities are very aware of career progression for young researchers. I think they're also aware of what a waste of money it is if you fund people as young researchers and then they fall out of the system at some place or other. We're all aware of that. And so we want to work to ensure that there is a place and that there are different places for different people. So, and let's not forget technicians and others who are critically important to labs as well. So I think there is an array of opportunities for researchers at different levels and in different places. And with our institutes, we have institutes as well as universities, institutes like the Crick and the Turing Institute. So there are different types of organizations in the UK where career progression can take place. And so I'm very confident that career progression is available here. Now you can have a discussion about what sort of things should career progression depend on. Is there an over-dependence on publications, for example? Is enough taken account of what you do to make a good lab, to make the lab culture good? These are things that are being thought about. So I think it should remain a good place for you to progress your career in the UK. But we, as I say, we very much want to associate to Horizon Europe, and all these things will happen as well.
Yes, and I think following on from what you were discussing about the Global Talent Visa and the Discovery Fund, there's a couple of questions in the chat which might be interesting. One of them is, would Global Talent Visa only apply to newcomers, or is there a chance that it would become mandatory for all people already resident in the UK? And I think this is important because obviously now that we're living here for a few years, we can have a settled status, but I wonder, you know, if this global visa will also be applied to us. And another question would be, how fast could the Discovery Fund be implemented? I mean, do you expect to be a gap of funding until that fund is open?
Right, well, let me take the Global Talent Visa. My understanding of the Global Talent Visa is not that people who are here now have to apply for it. It's a new method of fast tracking people into the UK. That's my understanding of it. On the other one, the Discovery Fund, the ambition at the moment is for the first call for the long grants, the ERC equivalent grants. The first call is to be April, I think, next year. So there's an awful lot of work to do between now and April, because even the appointments committee, which is going to set up the scientific board, and I'm on a committee setting that up, that hasn't even been decided yet. So there's a lot to do. So if there is a gap, then there is provision has been made for short-term transitions, in which case the government has expressed itself willing to, for example, give organizations like the Royal Society more money to give out to our university research fellowships. So currently we have about 300 people on 8-year grants called University Research Fellows. We have many more people apply than we can give the money to. And if there is a gap, then the government may give us more money and we can give it out fairly quickly because the whole system is already set up. But the ambition is for this Discovery Fund to begin the first call in April. for the ERC, but for the Marie Curie, if it comes through 𝗬𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿, then that wouldn't come on stream till 2022. But all is not lost, because the Royal Society already gives out what we call international fellowships, and in the comprehensive spending review, which is the big spending review which will come towards the end of the year, we have said that we can do 5 times as many, and the British Academy has said the same. So if we get the money, that will be over 200 fellowships for up to 3 years, and they could be dispensed immediately. And then if 𝗬𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 does the same thing in 2022, then we have even more. So the timetable is tight, but there is provision to cover all of these things. The only problem is if all the money has gone on COVID.
Yes, indeed. It has been a very, very important topic for this year. Hopefully next year we'll be able to focus maybe on something else besides COVID. I think you raised some interesting points, and I think we've always looked at Brexit as several problems, but we sometimes wonder if there could be some opportunities, and in this case I would mean in terms of Portugal, and maybe I would like to hear the opinion of Monica and perhaps later 𝗕𝗰𝗁𝗁𝗿𝗄, because when you look at the surveys that we've done, I think the Portuguese still think about going home, not maybe in the short term, but on the long term. And so one question we could raise is, will Brexit lead to more academic opportunities in Portugal? And if so, how can we make the country more attractive? Monica, maybe you can comment on this, even because, as you say, in your institute, you have researchers from other countries, including the UK. So surely, how can we attract more of these people? And could this be an opportunity?
Sure. So I was thinking that, for example, when we had a call for Deputy Director of the IGC, Deputy Director of Science, in 2018, we actually had several people applying from the UK that had positions, important positions in the UK as directors of different things, that actually wanted to become deputy directors of the IGC, in part because they wanted also to, they liked the IGC, of course, but also because they wanted to leave the UK. So there was a mixed thing that of people not feeling happy because it was right after all the discussions about Brexit. So at the time, I really felt that this was, of course, people, there would be people that would be very uncomfortable with Brexit, that would be looking for other opportunities. And, that's always good when you can get the best talent in the world, also considering the IGC, which we have normally. Actually, but I was thinking that this year we have a call for group leaders, and we have like 200 people from all over the world. And I didn't feel that there was an over-representation of people from the UK or anything. So just in that particular call in 2018, I really felt that it was very special, that we really had people that really were unhappy with the UK and Brexit at that time. But I do feel, in a way, I almost feel like sad because, like exploring Brexit to get the best people, because when we want is the best science in the world, and we want the UK also to recruit the best people. But of course, you are right that it's true that whenever we have environments like the US where people are very unhappy, also in the UK, that you can attract talent that normally would be staying in those countries, and now they want to come to Europe, and Portugal is one of those countries. So definitely being aware of that, I think it's very, very important. In the case of the IGC, I think there are several different opportunities also, because we've also created a new 𝗬𝗰𝘁𝗁𝗁𝗿 Center where we actually, to promote collaborative research. And part of it is also sabbaticals, and there we also are looking for people in the UK to spend some time in Portugal, and also collaborative work where people from everywhere in the world, including the UK, come to spend some time in Portugal to do research. So I think there are different opportunities. Now, just to finalize, just the question that you asked in terms of, getting people that, like you, that are in the UK and want to eventually come back to Portugal. I think there's still, I mean, we have, I think, very good conditions in the Gulbenkian Institute to recruit people, and we are competitive with many different places in the world, because we are very fortunate that we have the Gulbenkian Foundation, you know, subsidizing the Gulbenkian Institute. So that's, we are really, really fortunate. But I think still in Portugal, we have to create conditions to be competitive, so that we have, you know, starting packages that really are competitive, so that people feel that when they start, you know, their first step in their independent career, they can be competitive in Portugal as they can be everywhere else in the world. And in part, we need to have more funding for those people. And as you say also, that it's very clear that they would have a career ahead, that they would have always funding whenever they want to compete for funding, because there will be calls open, which is still not the case in Portugal, but we are fighting for that. But also that there will be a career and a progression that would be, you know, possible also, you know, with mobility between universities, which is something that is very nice in the UK, because you see people moving all over. And in Portugal, they're still inbreeding, and universities are still quite closed. There are some changes, but it's still, the system still needs to change quite a bit. And there's so much good talent out there that we could recruit, and young people, and the system needs to come back. But the system needs to change to have the conditions to attract you.
Yeah, we have to shake it up, sort of mixing more people.
We are doing our best also.
Yeah. Carlos, would you like to comment on the question?
No, I wanted to just tell you that when I lived 15 years outside of Portugal, and I think that all of you, as I think in my time, you get together on Saturdays, you go for a drink or for dinner, and you just talk about when are you going to Portugal. And I think that is up to Portugal to get the opportunities that you deserve for you to one day to come back. But your experience of being outside, it's so important for your life. And it's so different from others. It's so important for you as a person, not just as a scientist, that I think that I would say that when you live through that, through the pain of being different, to be in a lab where people are native speakers of English and you're not, when you feel that you're not from the same kind, but you think differently, and then the way you think is actually your asset to bring something different to the discussion, I think that's an amazing experience. So first of all, it's so good that you were able to get your positions outside. And it would be even better that your country would create the opportunities for you one day to choose or not, because some of you eventually would decide to stay in the UK or in other countries, and that's fantastic. But a great majority of you, like it was a great majority of my generation, we really wanted to come back. And the difficult thing is that the opportunities were not there, that there were no opportunities. And I think that the wonderful thing that we have to fight for as politicians and as scientists is that you have those opportunities and that you can make that choice. You can make the choice that you come or you go or you come back or not, but it's a choice. It's not because you don't have an opportunity that you stay because it's your decision to stay. And so I think that's just like more from the experience that I had in the past, that I know that probably 90% of you would love to come back. And so it's up to us in the country to create those opportunities. And I think that the country has changed so much. I mean, you look at IGC and other places in Lisbon, and today you see a lot of people from other countries that are now scientists based in Lisbon. And in the 90s, that was not, I mean, that didn't exist. I mean, that didn't exist. The Portuguese were outside and there was Portuguese here as scientists, but there was not people from other sides of the world that would come to Lisbon. And today it became really a place where people want to be, and scientists also want to be in Lisbon. So that's very, very good for the world. And I think that Portugal should bet more on that attraction and the ability of get you back. And as you know, Portugal did something that is very good for you, is that if you spend more than 5 years outside of Portugal, when you come back, you can have basically a 20% flat tax rate, which makes a big difference in your lives in terms of salary. So there's also tools to attract you back. The problem is that the opportunities sometimes are not there, and I know that a lot of you look for opportunities, and they're not existent. They don't exist as they should. Then I think that one of the things that for me in my tenure was interesting to see was to see the scientists that have moved abroad and the scientists that did move abroad. And those that move abroad, they really are different. And so that is something that I can tell you by experience, to see people like you and people that actually decide to stay in the same country all the time. So your value is, I would say, it's higher. The thing is that sometimes people don't recognize immediately your value because people resist to change, and they resist sometimes to have people from outside. I mean, I go to universities in Portugal where I see that everybody in the university at the top level, they were all from that university. They stayed in the university, they did a PhD in the university, and then they're professors at that university. And my God, that's so wrong. I mean, that's exactly what you don't want. You want diversity. And so in Portugal, you still have these two-tier kind of universities or system where you have a part of the country where you have basically a system that doesn't renew itself. And that's something that has to be changed. And people don't have the courage to do it. And here I talk about also the scientists that don't want to change it, not just the politicians. Also, there's people in your field that don't want that change to happen. And so it's up to you to actually to make it happen. And then Monica was saying something that Monica was feeling a little bit awkward of saying, oh, we're going to attract from the UK and the UK attracts from us. And that was one of the things that really made me sad about the Brexit, was that we had everything today to be the pole of attraction of science in the world, which was Europe with the UK, not Europe without the UK. In the last 2 years, especially, I mean, after the Trump election in the US, I received so many calls from US scientists asking about what were the opportunities in Europe to come to Europe. People from other parts of the world, also very good in Asia, wanted to come and having an ERC grant or other great grants that we have. And suddenly Brexit happens, and it's like you kind of do a fracture in something that was today, could be today, the best in the world, was this UK-EU relationship that doesn't exist already. So it's really a pity, because I felt that we were at the tipping point of becoming really the most attractive place, and suddenly one of our parts or part of our body, which was the UK, just goes away. So that is sad, but I think that Europe today, with the UK, is the most attractive place to be. I mean, for a scientist wants openness, wants freedom. So where do you have that freedom? In the US, I'm not sure that you have that, at least as you used to in the past. In Asia, you don't have that. You don't have the freedom that you have here. So we really have an opportunity to become the place in the world to attract people. And so I think that that was something that for all of us, and especially for your generation, can make a difference, because the US after the Second World War was that place. And so they had really the edge since the Second World War, when all the refugees from the war went to the US. So that immigration that everybody sometimes talks is the great thing that made the US the great place. And now we have the opportunity to have that in Europe. So let's hope for the best, and I still hope that this agreement in between the UK and the EU will happen. And so if we have that, somehow we can have an EU-UK relationship that is not exactly as it was before, but not as different as one could think.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping for that. And I think, so we've been discussing a lot of research and science, and one important group are students. So we see that a lot of people from Portugal, when they move to the UK in terms of science, they are students, they are PhD students mostly, and then some master's students. And unfortunately, Vivian from Universities UK International was not able to join us. But I wonder if some of you could comment on things. For example, we know that the UK has left the Erasmus program. So do we know if the UK is looking for alternatives for these programs? And could this be with the European Union, or could this be bilaterally? And I think another important question is, I think once the UK now completely leaves, and a lot of universities have mentioned this for 2021, the tuition fees will increase. Now, I'm sure a lot of other colleagues, and when we had the meeting this week with the ambassador and Cyril, a lot of other colleagues mentioned that tuition fees might be very high for students from the continent to pay. So could this be maybe a challenge of, people moving to the UK to start their research career, and might be that in the long run, the UK can take a bit of a toll in terms of excellency in academia? What do you think? I don't know if the ambassador would like to comment, or Julie.
Well, I defer to the ambassador, I think, but the Royal Society doesn't have a position on the Erasmus programme. It's really for our colleagues in universities and in the British Academy who would be able to answer you on that. I know how valuable it is to so many people, and I would be surprised if they weren't looking to set up something as a replacement, but I don't know for sure. And the fee question, of course, that is very much to the fore at the moment because but I don't know what the fees are likely to be, but I think many people are talking about them going up. And I can completely understand about that being off-putting.
Thank you. Ambassador, would you like to give a few words about this topic?
Yes. I don't know, Marcia, I've got a connection problem, I'm afraid, and so I've missed most of the last, very sadly, I didn't hear most of what Carlos said, and I didn't hear what Julie said just now. So what is the question that you're asking me to comment on?
Yeah, don't worry. So the question is, the UK has left the Erasmus program, and one of the questions is, are we looking for alternatives between the UK and the European Union to get back to another sort of program, another sort of arrangement? And also, how will we deal with the tuition fees that will increase for students in general, but also for European students now when they want to come to the UK after 2021?
I think Chris is freezed.
Yes, I don't think the ambassador is able to.
I can't. I'm really sorry. I can't hear any of that.
I think let me just help.
Your voice is breaking up on my computer. I think maybe I should try and rejoin the meeting.
Okay,
I'm going to try that.
I'm going to try that, and maybe Carlos can say a few words about this in the meantime.
No, I was just saying that the decision of leaving Erasmus was a unilateral decision from the UK side, and that the EU as far as I know, and of course I'm not there anymore, but the EU is definitely open to have the UK still in the Erasmus program. So it's a unilateral decision that was not understood by Brussels, and I think that it's actually one of these things that is wrong, and it's a political reaction, and it was too quick. But I think that they can come back. Erasmus is really one of the best things that was done in the European project, and so it's really sad to see the UK go. The other point I wanted to comment was on the fees, and I think that the UK will have a problem, which is that if you decide to put the same fees for the European continentals as you put at the level to the people from outside of Europe, like from China and Asia, the increase in fees would be so much that the UK universities would lose on the diversity of the pool of students that they have, because the Europeans cannot pay that price. So you will immediately reduce the number of continental Europeans, and you will increase the number, for instance, people coming from Asia. And so you would have a problem. I see that in universities like the UCL, which I know very well. I mean, at some point, you cannot have just people from one side of the world. You want to have that diversity. So I really hope that even if there'll be an increase, that increase will be quite small for the sake of the UK universities to keep that diversity that is so essential for the UK system. The UK system is based on really this amazing diversity. I remember to go to the Imperial College and ask to Alice Gast, I thought, look, how many Europeans do you have? I mean, how many in between professors and staff? And she told me we have 1,500 staff and professors at the Imperial College that come from continental Europe. So the diversity is just amazing. And so I think that what Julie was saying, and I think that is the view of people, the scientists that I know, and I imagine that Julie shares that, is that the UK understands that they have to keep that diversity. And so the price will adjust. And I'm hopeful that even in a very downside scenario, you will have a price that adjusts also to the need of the UK to have people from continental Europe. And so we'll see where the price stays. If there's a good deal, if there's a deal with the EU, I think that things will stay as they were with a good deal with the EU, because the EU is interested also in having and keeping the same prices. If there's a no deal situation, I think it's not going to be as bad as you think. We'll be in the middle.
I think we just received the comment on the chat that says many universities have now confirmed that tuitions for the upcoming year, in 2021, will be for the EU students the same as international, so around 30K compared with previous 9K.
Exactly. But the problem, I think that it will be until 2021-22, but then what will happen after that? That's the question. And I hope that one can maintain this situation. And I know that Michel Barnier, this was one of the things that was at the top of his agenda. He knows that very, very well. So I really hope that we can maintain the prices, because if not, it will be really bad for everyone, including the UK. So it's not that this is positive, because one could think, okay, they increase the prices, they'll make more money. But no, I mean, they will lose people from the EU, and they don't want that. I think the UK doesn't want that. I'm sure.
I agree with you, Carlos. And the thing is, universities don't just want the money, they want the best. So they don't want to teach anybody who can pay for it, because that wealth does not accord necessarily with talent. There may be overlaps. So the key thing from the university, and I spent all my life in universities before coming here. The other thing is that in many universities in America, they have what they call a needs blind admission. so that if you don't have the money, if you're good enough, the university has a fund that it could pay. I think we'll see more of that in Britain too, where philanthropists donate to the universities to make sure that everyone of talent can come to the university if they can get in.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that would be a really good solution.
Yeah.
That would be possible.
It's so interesting that, Julie, you mentioned that, because that was exactly the reason that in the year 1998, I went to the US. I had absolutely no money to pay the fees of Harvard Business School. And when I was accepted, contrary to other universities in the European Union at the time, they basically told me, if you have the money to take a flight, you take the flight. We'll find financial arrangements, we'll find you a loan, we'll find you grants, and you'll come. And that has been a huge strength of the United States, is that when you get the best, you just get them and you basically pay, or you find a solution. And I really, part of my life was that, because otherwise I would never been able to be studying in the American university. No, that's super important. If that happens, if the UK is able to do that, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Ambassador, are you back in the call? Would you like to?
Yes. Look, can I just apologise first of all for disrupting your meeting, because I've had all sorts of problems with being disconnected, so I may be disconnected as I speak. But okay, so I think I've heard enough to understand what the point that's being made, and it's a really important point, of course, and it's one of my sort of biggest concerns, is that the imposition of higher fees, or equivalent fees to what the UK charges to students coming from other parts of the world, should, of course, the last thing I want to see is that to act as a significant deterrent to European talent coming to UK universities. But I just want to correct, I think part of the premise of the question was that the UK has left the Erasmus programme. First of all, that's technically not true. We are still participating in the Erasmus programme, at least until the end of the transition period. And as I tried to explain earlier, I think this whole question of future participation or association with Erasmus, and indeed other EU programmes, is bound up in the wider question of the future negotiations which are going on at the moment, and we still don't know what the outcome is. So I'm not completely despondent about, I think it's not by any means impossible that there'll be some kind of arrangement which will continue into the future, which will associate us with Erasmus+, or failing that, again, ministers have said that they would be looking to replace that with something similar, something equivalent. I'm not quite sure what that looks like, but I think there are. And then Julie made an interesting and important point about how the sort of funding model and sources of funding might look rather different in the future. But the aim, I think, many people's aim would be to allow, not to create a system which would allow, the best talent still to come to the UK, and for, the level of fees not to be, a significant deterrent. So I want to be optimistic about all of that, and hope that that's not going to, not in the end going to prevent the people, the best talent coming to, getting together here in the UK at the best universities. Can I just, while I've got a connection and I'm still able to speak to you, can I just pick up on another issue that I think I've seen raised by 2 or 3 or 4 people maybe in the sidebar, which is about sort of the slightly wider question of mobility, because I'm worried to see people commenting that the numbers are falling, and I certainly can't argue with the statistics, but I think it's very important for people like me and the government I represent to hear that. I think, as I said in my opening remarks, and this also answers, I think, the question, I hope this answers the question about the global talent visa. Someone asked whether that was, something that everybody would have to apply for. I absolutely agree with Julie's interpretation, which is that it's a scheme to fast track people in after, after next year, when the new immigration system is in place. Those people who are already here, I think, are all covered by the EU settlement scheme, settled status scheme, and I'm sure you're all extremely familiar with that. Now, as I said, I can't pretend that Brexit is going to make things simpler, because they've been so simple in the past. Everybody's automatically had the right to come and live and study in the UK. But equally, you know, I think it's also true that the system that is being put in place, the student visa system, which I think is now open for people who will be arriving in the UK after the end of the transition period, you know, I still think that skilled and talented students are going to find it relatively straightforward to qualify for those student visas. And the other important point I just wanted to make is that, you know, the UK government has been very clear that we will continue to welcome international students, and importantly, they're not going to set a limit on the number of international students coming to the UK. In fact, the government has even set itself a target of attracting, I think, 600,000 international students into our higher education sector by 2030. And on top of that, there's also this new special graduate route, which is going to be introduced at some point next year, I'm told, which is going to give people who graduate in the UK the right to stay on, work in the UK for 2, or in the case of PhD students, I think 3 years after they've successfully graduated. So I just mentioned all those things because I think they paint a slightly less, you know, discouraging picture than perhaps I'm picking up from some of the comments and questions. I think, you know, the government does understand the value of continuing to attract the best talent into the UK, into our higher education sector. And I do think that that, you know, quite a lot of these announcements that I've just been sort of, some of which I've just referred to, you know, are designed to be a response to that. Having said that, it is obviously worrying to see people commenting in the chat and in the discussion that you know, that the numbers are falling off, and that these are seen as restrictions which are going to prevent people coming in the future. And I think people like me need to listen to that and work out how to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for clarifying those important points. I'm conscious of the time, so I just have one last question. It's a bit of a controversial one, and I'll maybe ask Monica to comment on this. Because one of our members asked us, would the Foundation for Science and Technology, the Portuguese one, still fund postdocs and PhD candidate scholarships for research in the UK after Brexit? And I think this comes after the discussion about tuition fees, about mobility issues, and obviously a lot of the funds that Portugal receives come from the European Union. So should we still fund these PhDs to go abroad, in this case to the UK?
I think, you know, as Carlos said before, it's really, really important to have people moving to different places and to be trained in the best places in the world. And so there's still areas in Portugal that, you know, we cannot train people in certain areas because we're still not strong enough. And we should definitely have fellowships for people to be trained in the best places in the world in those areas. And of course, opportunities, even if it's not for those areas, to have a few opportunities, at least for some students, to go to the best places in the world. Of course, some of them can also apply for fellowships from those places, but I think it's great that Portugal still offers the possibility that people can apply for Portuguese fellowship. So in that sense, I think yes, Portugal should still offer those opportunities, but it should negotiate with the UK so that it doesn't pay this sort of tuition fees that I think are just like really impossible when you compare to other places.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I agree with what Carlos said, and I myself, and I know a lot of other colleagues could not possibly pay fees with these amounts. And well, thank you very much. I think just as a wrap up, what I would ask you, like all the panelists to comment is basically in a minute or two, just share with us what you think must be done in the next few months to ensure a swift transition after Brexit, in terms of obviously science, research and education, and to let us know, as 𝗲𝗂𝗁𝗁 as an association, and obviously we can pass this message to other diaspora associations, if there's anything else we can do or we should be doing to help you on your side to understand the issues we have, and to better lobby for protecting our members' rights. I don't know, Monica, maybe you want to start with these 2 minutes or 1 minute of just conclusion remarks.
No, I think here maybe the ambassador can tell us how can we work better together regarding this, but definitely as part of 𝗀𝗰𝗶𝗲, we'll continue our bit of, you know, voicing for scientists in Europe as the importance of this relationship between Europe and the UK. And I think it's really through the collaborative schemes where people can really work together. and where there are no boundaries, because science has no boundaries, and also through schemes where the mobility is really important. People feel that they can go anywhere, whatever, you know, their research can be done, and where they can answer their research questions in the best way. So, I mean, as a scientist and as part of your life, we'll continue voicing that and hope that a deal can be obtained in a way that is the best for Europe, and it will be the best for the world also, and all of us. Thank you.
Maybe Julie, would you like to go next?
Thank you very much. I agree with what Monica has said, and I don't want to go over ground that we've already covered, but I think we should, I go back to where I started with the Royal Society's relationship with Portugal through our original patron, King Charles II. I think we should develop a bilateral relationship with Portugal. I think, but it's got to be meaningful. We need to isolate possibly certain topics or projects that we could do together, which would benefit both Portugal and the UK. There are plenty of them, you know, climate change, biodiversity, something in the life sciences. There's plenty to do. And I think whatever happens with Horizon Europe, and our position is as close as possible association, but we should do that anyway, because bilateral partnerships can be another method of facilitating mobility for young researchers to spend time in both places.
Thank you. Maybe Carlos? You're mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay, I'm here. No, I was saying that I really feel that I still have a lot of hope. And I have a lot of hope because the UK is an amazing country, and is a country that has been always open. And the foundation of the UK is to be open. The first time I visited the Royal Society, 𝗕𝗰𝘁𝗂𝗿 showed me the records of a Portuguese Jew that in the year of the 1711, was made the first fellow, the first Portugal, or one of the first Portuguese fellows of the Royal Society. And he was a Jewish refugee that was from my hometown in 𝗕𝗂𝘁. And he left Portugal because of the Inquisition. He went to the UK. He became one amazing doctor, a scientist. He was awarded this fellowship of the Royal Society. And the first thing he decided to do was to help Portuguese students by sending microscopes to Portugal at the time. And when you look at the story of the UK, the story of the UK was exactly that. Was that after the Second World War, during the Second World War, the place where the goal was the UK. When I lived in the UK in the year 2000, when 10 countries joined the European Union at the time, most of the countries in continental Europe decided to ask for a period of transition. So people from Poland could not get into France immediately in 2004. But the UK did differently. The UK decided at the time that they wanted immediately to open the borders. So even if the situation is very difficult, I think that the UK as a country, it's so much bigger than these. And so I still have that hope that things will go well, because we all, and I'm sure that you do, we love the UK. I mean, we love the UK as a country. And every day that I spend there in the UK, you feel that people are free, that there's less hierarchy in between people, that people can go against their bosses, they can shout if they need, and to speak up and to create in a different way. So I'm positive. So I'm still positive that the UK will get to an agreement with the EU. And I'm sure that most of the people that I know, and for sure, the public servants of the European Union and the European Commission really want that to happen. So it will happen. Okay,
yeah,
keep it
yeah,
there.
I think
really
so.
hope.
I think at least for 𝗲𝗁𝗁 members, they still seem very optimistic about getting a deal. So this is what we're still hoping for when we discuss this together. Ambassador, please do give us your words.
Well, thank you. Thanks once again for inviting me to participate this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and learned so much from it, and it's been an absolute joy to hear so much optimism. And I don't always hear optimism these days, but it's been great to hear it this evening. So thank you for that. And by the way, Carlos, always such a pleasure to interact with you. And I haven't had a chance to say it yet, but congratulations on your new role at UCL. I talked earlier on about how Portuguese nationals sort of enrich our higher education ecosystem. You will certainly be a major enrichment when you take up your position in London. So delighted to hear about that. So, I think I've heard a lot this evening, which has given me food for thought. As I say, it's great to hear optimism, but I'm also conscious of challenges that you've raised, and they are indeed serious challenges. I've got a better understanding of those issues. I think it's confirmed to me that this is a really important dimension of the UK-Portugal relationship, and from my perspective, it's really worth fighting for, and I will really continue to do that. And as soon as this wretched pandemic allows, I will get back on the road, and I will redouble my efforts to encourage Portugal-UK links, both at the institutional level, but also at the level of individual students and researchers. Of course, we'll have a much better idea fairly shortly, in a few weeks' time at the latest, where this EU-UK relationship is headed, and that is going to answer some of the difficult questions that we've been talking about this evening. But whatever happens between London and Brussels, I sincerely hope that we can find ways. And this goes to Julie's excellent point about the importance of the bilateral links. I hope we can preserve and indeed grow this very, very precious connection between our two countries. And you are all part of that. So please carry on doing what you are all doing. Stay optimistic. Carry on building your networks and your contacts and spotting opportunities for collaboration. And please let us know, let me know, if I or my team here at the embassy can help in any way. And I hope that is, from me as well, is an appropriately optimistic note on which to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'll just give the opportunity for one of the members of 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁. He's going to have an important role in a few months' time, and I'd like to give him just a chance to say a few words for 1 or 2 minutes. David, you want to just intervene maybe 1-2 minutes maximum, because I'm aware we overrun the meeting. David, are you there?
Okay, not muting now. Thanks. I'll be short. First, just thank Chris, the ambassador, for having tweeted news about me on a Portuguese newspaper a couple of months ago. I noticed that I was noticed. I was surprised. I'm David. I worked at the 𝗕𝗰𝘰𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗂 Source, a research facility here in Oxfordshire. It's a national synchrotron, so a particle accelerator. That it serves about 30 to 40% researchers actually in Europe and about 60% in the UK, both companies and academic researchers. What I want to throw is, I saw a lot of hoping for a deal, etc. I'm quite optimistic, but I think it doesn't really matter if we have a deal or not. And I also I'm sympathetic what Monica said, that we should not try. It's almost anti-nature to try to take profit of this situation. And I also understand what Julie said of not trying to invest too early on alternative B. But at the same time, I think it's the time to start thinking about those. And what I want to say is, for example, Erasmus. I'm a supporter, but I'm not a great fan of the way it's implemented. I never did it when I was back in a student because I felt the money was not enough. I was from a poor family, and I could barely pay my flights and would not support me outside. But there are alternatives, but because they are not centralized, it will require, for example, 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 and associations like 𝗲𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁 to help to coordinate and to make that communication and that flow work. Examples are summer students. My institute, 𝗕𝗰𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗍𝗂 does summer students of 3 months, and why not get Europeans? And we have already sometimes some Europeans. How do we advertise that? We have traineeships. I decided not to do an Erasmus at my time, and I did a traineeship of 4 months in Europe, and at the SRF is a national European facility with 22 countries contributing, including the UK, including Portugal, and I was much better funded, and I had a much better experience than all my colleagues that did Erasmus, and I still got a grade for my university, like Erasmus does. So there is also lab rotations. You know, in the US, they are very common. Why not try to promote lab rotations across, you know, Portugal and the UK? So there are alternatives to Erasmus. They are not centralized, so they are harder to coordinate and require, like I said, 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿, the embassy, other things to try to move those things to make them work. I also heard, you know, as a Portuguese, seeing the UK leave, it's a puzzling thing without having emotions, because Portugal had the back to Europe all these centuries, and we always felt, you know, Spain is going to conquer us. And then we embraced Europe when the UK was already there. Now we see the UK leaving. The other comment historically is, like, you know, Portugal has this old treaty with the UK since the 1200s or 1300s. And it was valid during the Second World War. You know, Roosevelt asked to use the Azores, and Portugal refused. Then the UK intervened in the US behalf, and Portugal allowed, but the American soldiers had to use the British insignia and being under a British almirant or commander. So we have a lot in common, and we were saying about research in common, you know, the world, of course, environment, but we have the oceans, we have a lot of things that are in common. So I'm very optimistic. I think we'll require more efforts, but I don't think it's all bad. You know, there are opportunities, and we just have to look positively to the future. And I think 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 now could have an even bigger contribution than it had up to now, because, you know, now it's where it can make a real contribution on a bilateral relationship. So I think there are positive notes. I think we should not think negatively. And it's not trying to take profit of the situation, it's trying to use whatever is confronting us to bring us in a better outcome. Even visas, you know, I was a decade in Australia, the Queen is my Queen because I'm an Australian citizen now, and I'm an expert in visas. So I think we should have a section in 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 about visas and how to help researchers to do 3 months, 2 years, and 5 years, and how we would intervene. So there is a lot to be done. A lot starts in January probably, when everything gets clarified. But I think I'm optimistic. It's just essentially I want to leave that tone.
Thank you. I think 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 is definitely trying to do like our best, and I have an excellent team working with me, so we are all doing our best to get things done. I would just like to thank you all again, all our panelists, for their insights and the excellent discussion. I am aware this is a Saturday and I know we overrun, but discussion is great, and there was so much more we could talk about. And obviously, maybe next year we will organize another one of these where we could finally discuss when things are properly or a bit more defined than they are at this point. I think on 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 side, what is clear is that our members, or at least those who have settled in the UK, remain hopeful that their rights and opportunities will be maintained. And from that, you know, I agree with the ambassador and I agree with David about, you know, we're still optimistic. Maybe we're just optimistic people, and we're still hoping for the best. And if not, we would still like to maintain a very good and close relationship with the UK anyway. And I know Portugal has been doing a great work on that, as the ambassador mentioned in the beginning, with several bilateral agreements between the two countries and different universities. However, we know based on our surveys that the expectations of our members when they move to the UK, including funding and opportunities, career progression, it's very clear that these opportunities must be maintained to keep attracting these researchers and students in the UK. And obviously, as a last note, 𝗲𝗂𝘁𝗂𝗿 has been always very keen on contributing whichever way we can to strengthening these relationships between Portugal and the UK. We remain open to look for opportunities to do so. So for all the panelists here today, if you have any ideas, if you ever need our help, if you ever need any contacts, please let us know. We are working very hard, as I mentioned in the beginning, either individually or with other diasporas, to help you as much as you can, so you can help us as best as you can. Once again, thank you all for attending the event. I wish you a good evening and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Obrigado.
Bye. Obrigada.
Obrigado.